So here, we are to analyze the amplitude of this graph. I know that it's a 2, okay? This coefficient of cos x, this coefficient here, that's the amplitude, okay? So you can get the amplitude by inspection. Amplitude is always positive, it's never negative, okay? If there was a -2 here, then you take the positive of that -2. Right? If you can't get it from the equation, then you can use this formula. Amplitude.
So in which case would you not be able to get it from the equation?
It's up to you. Some learners have got issues finding the amplitude from the equation. If you can, then you don't need the formula.
Or let's say like in the index, like it shows you like the graph form and then it says, and then no equation, let's say it says
Yeah, then now, in that case, it would be better to use the what? The formula. So the formula is y max minus y minimum all over 2. With this formula, you never go wrong in terms of finding the amplitude for any graph of sine and what? Cos. Remember, for tan, no amplitude. So our maximum here is going to be a 1. Our minimum is going to be -3. This value here, that's the minimum. This one here is the maximum. So that would be -3 all over 2. You get 1 plus 3 over 2, which gives you 4 over 2, and you get a 2. So that will be the amplitude, which is the same as the coefficient of cos x. Sorry? Right. Then the period of this graph obviously is 360 degrees. The domain, we are saying x is an element. We are starting from the minimum, which is 0. So x is 0 degrees, and the maximum is 360 degrees. And then the range, the maximum is 1, minimum is -3. So we say y lies between -3 and +1. Then you are done. All right? The period is 360 degrees. Right? I can ask you more questions here on this graph. Like, for example, I can ask you for what values of x is the graph decreasing. Okay? I can also ask you for what values of x, okay, for what values of x are the y values negative. Okay? There are many questions that can come from this graph. Yes?
So how do you write it? You have to say
for which question?
The decrease now. So we know which one.
Okay. Well, if we say for what values of x is the graph decreasing, by decreasing we are saying the graph is the y values are getting smaller and what? And smaller. That's what decreasing means. The y values are becoming what? Smaller and smaller. So they start from a maximum which is 1. Then the values are what? Are decreasing until this point where they stop decreasing. So we take this x value here. We also take that x value. So the answer for that question will be between 0 degrees and 180 degrees. The graph is what? Decreasing. Right? Between 180 degrees and 360 degrees, the graph is what? Increasing. Okay? So it's increasing between 180 degrees and 360 degrees. The graph is increasing. Right? If I ask you for what values of x are the y values negative, it means you may need to determine the value of x here and the value of what? Of x there. Because the y values are negative below the x-axis. Okay? The y values are negative below the what? The x-axis. Now, for you to be able to determine the value of x here and the value of x there, you need your knowledge of trig equations together with the general solution that we did last time. Okay? That's why you can't do trig graphs in grade 11 without trig equations and general solution.
Any grade 10?
No, these are grade 11. Right. Okay. All right. Let's do that question. Right. For what values of x is f of x less than 0? So I'll just get the question there. Let's do it because it's part of interpretation anyway. So the question will be, okay, let me write it somewhere here. For what values of x is f of x less than 0? F of x is less than 0 means y is less than 0. Okay. Right? Remember, I think I've told you this in the past. This f of x here is the same as what? Y. Most learners have got an issue with understanding that concept. F of x is y. The main reason is because when you are dealing with graphs, we use a notation called function notation. That f of x is called function notation. Okay? So if you are going to have two graphs, you need to distinguish them in terms of their names. So if you use function notation, it's much better by using f of x, g of x, h of x, and so on. All right? So to answer that question, you need to know what is the value of x here and what is the value of x there. Right? What is the value of y here? What is the value of y here?
0, 7, 6.
We are along the x-axis, so y is what? 0. And what is the value of y here? 0. So all you have to do is equate this f of x to what? 0. So let's do a working out. Okay? Since the equation is f of x equal to 2 cos x minus 1. 2 cos x minus 1. What this means is where there is f of x, we can put 0, so we can have an equation 2 cos x minus 1 equal to what? 0. Now we are back in term 2, trig what? Equations. Then we have 2 cos x equal to 1, then cos x equal to a half. Right? Then after that, to find the two values, we just use the general what? The solution. So we can say x will be equal to plus or minus shift cos of a half, which is 60 degrees, plus k times 360 degrees. I want you to be aware that we have done term 2 work. That knowledge is required now. So this becomes x equal to plus or minus 60 degrees plus k times 360 degrees, where k is an element of z. Right? Right. Since I'm not teaching the general solution, what will be the two values of x? One of them is going to be 60 degrees, that's the first one. The other one will be 300. The other one will be 300. Thank you. Okay? You didn't guess. You subtracted 60 degrees from 360. You didn't guess. But whether you understood why you have to subtract that 60 from 360, it's another thing. All right.
So it's the 300 plus
Yes. See, okay. Do you agree with me? You know what? Sometimes I feel like it's just good to do math with understanding. Right? You see here we have got 90. We have got 90 degrees here. This is what? This is not an asymptote. Right? That's 180. This is what? 270. And then we have got 360 here. Do you agree with me that this is the first quadrant? Huh?
Yes.
Second quadrant? Third, fourth quadrant. Right? This point here, it's in the what? Fourth quadrant. Therefore, the second value of x has to be more than 270. And it must be less than what? 360. This point here is in the first quadrant between 0 degrees and 90 degrees. Therefore, the answer must be between those two. And the appropriate answer here, it will be what? 60 degrees. So this is the first quadrant answer, fourth quadrant answer. Remember, cosine is positive in which quadrants?
First and
First and what? And fourth. There is a connection. Your knowledge of the Cartesian plane in terms of the quadrants, trig equations, trig graphs, there is a what? A connection. Okay, and that connection is going to become more important in grade 11. Because we don't teach graphs, rather trig graphs in grade 12. Okay? So you mustn't think that the work that you did last term is gone. It's not gone. It's coming back now. Application of it. Right? So now that I found the two values of x, right, I can now answer the question. For what values of x, okay, is f of x less than 0? We are talking about the y values that are below the x-axis, which means my answer is going to be 60 is less than, 60 degrees is less than x is less than 300. So the solution for this question, it will be, let me write it in blue. The solution for this question, it will be 60 degrees is less than x is less than 300 degrees. Between 60 degrees and 300 degrees, the y values of this graph are negative. Okay, it's part of interpretation. Okay? Are you following that? Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so let me now move on to the grade 11 work. I can't take too much time doing grade 10 work. Alright, grade 11, tree graph. First, I'm going to start with what is called change in period number. We'll start with a case where the period is going to change. Okay? So I'll say effects. Okay, let me write this as the general equation. The general equations of trigonometric graphs the general equations of trigonometric graphs with a period different from the grade 10 graphs are right, I'm just gonna do it step by step because I don't want to confuse anyone. Right? So first one, it will be y equal to, let's use b, right? When I use b, so it will be sine bx. Okay? Please take note here. The sentence says the general equations of trigonometric graphs with a period different from the grade 10 graphs are, which means the period for sine, cos, and tan, for sine and cos is no longer 360 now. It's going to change. For tan, it's no longer 180 degrees. It's going to change. The general equations of those graphs with a period different from the grade 10 ones are of the form y equal to sine bx, with y equal to cos bx. Please take note, where I'm putting b, you can put another letter. Some books they put k, right? But I chose b.
Attention please. Can all the grades 10, 11 and 12 who have not had their phones taken, please come down to the hall now. If you have...
Alright, so we have got y equal to sine bx. Okay, let me start off.